Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the September 18th meeting of the Yakima School Board. We do have interpretation services from Nate this evening with Language Connection. If you are in person tonight and need translation services, we have translation devices you may use. Please check in with Barb for a device. And Nate, would you please translate this information, please, from the podium?
Buenas tardes, tenemos disponible servicio de interpretación con aparatos y auriculares para los que necesiten. Están atrás, con confianza.
Gracias. There are two options. Oh, wait, there are live streaming options for this meeting. You can find the link on our webpage under Find It Fast and then Board of Directors, or go directly to the www.ysd7.org/board meetings. For public comment, there are two options. The first option is for comment on agenda items only, and the second option toward the end of the meeting is for any other topic. There are two documents to sign if you would like to speak tonight, a sign-in form and a guidelines form, and you may get those from the table. If you are interested in past meetings, you can find a link on our webpage to the YSD YouTube channel to view past meetings that were recorded and posted there. Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Navarro Jr.
Here.
President Walker.
Present.
Director Rice.
Here.
And Director Beckett and Vice President Villanueva are not here.
Next, would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, please? And the character word of September is honest, worthy of praise, reputable, respectable. O en español, honesto, digno de confianza, íntegro y respetable. And now we're ready for the land acknowledgement.
Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation.
The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres.
Across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Cliticat, and Yakima counties.
Today we honor the Native people who are tied to the land through history, legends, and cultures.
We acknowledge their descendants who live in the world today.
We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial.
An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect.
And a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase indigenous peoples' history and culture.
It also honors the truth.
As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Thank you, students. Next up, we have members of the board updates, and I believe we'll start with Director Rice.
What I wanted to share today is that the board has, well, most of the board has completed the spreadsheet tool that was created for upcoming General Assembly, which is this coming weekend, and identified those proposals, whether they support them or not. And so I will go through now and quantify that so that I'll know how to vote on those proposals when we get to General Assembly. I'm going to be joining virtually for logistics purposes, and I'm looking forward to General Assembly. It'll be, it should be interesting discussion because of many of the topics that are that will be on that agenda. We do have a link in Board Docs to that document. It's in PDF form, and I don't know if anyone has any questions about it. Okay. All right, so I think that's my report, is that we've completed that task and are moving on to General Assembly this weekend.
Thank you, Martha. Any other comments from the board or updates? I just have one brief one. I enjoyed the Yakima School Foundation Hoptember celebration last Saturday, and nice group of people there. It was, I think, a fun time was had by everyone that was there, and hopefully they'll grow that in the future years. It's nice to see that, the support for our teachers and students. Moving on, we have our superintendent's update. Dr. Green.
Thank you, President Walker, members of the board. I'd like to start today by simply acknowledging that we did have a significant community incident that occurred last week with a shooting on Arlington and 44th, right there off site of our Eisenhower campus. And I would like to commend our Safety and Security Department for their quick response, their efforts in assuring safety and security at a time where it's paramount. First and foremost, the most important thing that we do is look after our students and provide a safe environment, knowing that it's impossible for them to learn if they're worried about their own safety. And while that is certainly a challenge in our society today, it is not something that is simply unique here to Yakima, but we've certainly had quite our experiences as of late. And I believe that the added benefit of our proactive approach has been in the Centegix area where we're able to lock down a facility at a moment's notice. And I know that that was something that contributed greatly to making sure that we were able to have as many people as possible, as many students as possible inside the school and adjacent schools at that time. I'd also like to publicly thank Sarah Cordova and her continued efforts, along with Nate Henyon, our Assistant Director of Safety and Security, and also thank publicly Chief Murray and the response of his officers, as well as Sheriff Robert Udell and the deputies that were able to offer support in the following days. So it really is a community effort, and as I said before, it's not Yakima. It's around the country, and I'm hopeful that we will continue to work to address the issues that are facing our society in a collective manner that's not just unique to school settings. So with that, I'll take a lighter moment here to introduce our new leadership to their roles, you to them and their new roles. We do have some that have been in our district but are assuming new positions, and it's always important to know the faces of those who lead in our schools. I've said this before, I'll say it again, but nothing makes an impact on a student like a high-quality teacher in the classroom. And second to that is having a high-quality administrator and being in those roles of proactively addressing issues from social emotional needs to academic needs, and in times of emergency is also something that is maybe overlooked too much when we're talking about the work of our assistant principals and principals. So I'd like to have them come up here and stand. They all better be here, maybe one, but I think we have But if you'd come up, and I believe, are we going to take a photo at some point? Yes, so we'll have you come over here to the podium. We'll probably move the podium aside and then maybe take a photo with all of you here. So we'll start with our Discovery Early Learning Center. We're really excited to have Lucas Yeager as our principal there. If you'd stand up, Lucas, and come on up. Yeah, there you go. And he comes to us from a school district to the west, and he was heavily involved. I believe he was our special ed director at that time and is now working with our littlest learners at the Early Learning Discovery site. I've been very impressed with my association with him. I want to thank him for his work coming into to that setting. I'd like to invite now Tally Garcia to come on up. She's our new assistant principal at Garfield Elementary, joining Steve Brownlow. It's a very quick baptism right now, as Mr. Brownlow is out at the moment. So we're thankful for your leadership and all of your knowledge and wisdom about our district, and being able to take that to Garfield and serve our community in that area. So thank you. That's right. We have another individual coming to us from a school district to the west. Tanner Latour, could you stand, please? He is our new assistant principal at Gilbert Elementary on our west side, so we're thankful to have him serving in that role. It's always wonderful to have new leadership come in and learn from a veteran. That doesn't always happen. We've had a lot of schools as of late, the last several years, where we've had assistant principals and principals coming in together. So we're excited to have him learning with Stephanie and working with her at our Gilbert site. At our other elementary schools, we have Phil Costner, who is not here this evening. He had an appointment that he could not miss, so he is excused. He's our new principal at MLK Junior, replacing Maria Lucero and the great work that she did there for nearly a decade, if not a decade. And we're glad to have him. He comes to us from Pasco. He is fully bilingual. We're excited about what he brings to our Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary community. One of my son's past teachers, which in the 8th grade, he had a wonderful teacher that just thought he was fantastic in communicating with parents and putting kids first, and that's Brandon Hauver. He's our assistant principal at Roosevelt Elementary. At least he was before tonight. So I should have had him stand before I said all those nice things, but we're excited about Brandon as well. He comes to us from the East Valley School District. At least that's where he resides, but he's been in our district as a teacher and now as an administrator, and we'll work with Cheryl Jordan, who really did yeoman's work last year in being the only administrator at the Roosevelt site, and it was just amazing the work that she did there, and now to have Brandon is an added bonus. At Franklin, we have one new assistant principal there now, formally acknowledging her this evening. She was there a bit of time last year, and now she's full-time there. Cherie Carroll is our addition there to the Franklin site, both serving with Sherry Anderson and Andrew Espinola, and we're glad that she brings a wealth of knowledge at the elementary level into that transition at the middle school. Also, another shift is Artemio Chavez. He is here. Wonderful. There he is, Artemio. Artemio was at Franklin, and we shifted him to Lewis and Clark, where he provides much needed support in the form of having great representation for our male student body at that school, as well as being fully bilingual and supporting our community. I would, again, I must say this, I say this every time, is he has handled being shifted from one building to the other. It's never easy when you make where you are the place to be, where you make your environment somewhere where you think you're going to be long-term, and he was only there short-term, and at my request, he did move to Lewis and Clark, and I'm thankful for you taking that position and serving our community on the south side there of Yakima. At the high school level, we have additions everywhere. Lots of great additions. We have a alumnus from Davis High School returning to Davis High School. Gabe Stotts, assistant principal now for the Pirates. They're at the Pirate Ship. As I look at his photo, he's wearing his Davis Letterman's jacket here and all ready to go. And I am a little bit connected at Davis, so I do have a relative that works there, and she cannot stop talking about you. So you're doing well by getting in with the librarian over there. So thank you, Gabe. At YV Tech, we welcome our new principal, Bonnie Smith, if she would please stand and join the fold over here. I've known Bonnie for years. When I was a principal at Toppenish, I believe she was still at YV Tech as a teacher. She did then move over to the Toppenish district, and I believe she was a CTE director, eventually became principal, and we are just super fortunate to have somebody of her caliber who really understands CTE programs and leadership, and is just beloved by a staff that she worked with at YV Tech. And so to have her come here to Yakima and not only serve students in Yakima, but across the upper lower valley and roundabout in serving so many different students. As you know, our site there serves students from all over. So thank you, Bonnie. And then our last, we'll introduce them as a pair. I hope that that's okay. Yes, getting the nod. This is our only pair coming in completely new, taking over a school. And we know that Sharon Harris and Dave Chaplin left us this last year, retired together. And we have replacing them, Natalie Riley as our principal and Kevin Brennan, our assistant principal. Kevin does come to us as well from a district to the west, and Natalie comes to us from, after a year, I believe a year at Davis, yes? 2 years? 1 year, 1 year at Davis. Previously, she was in the Renton School District, where she was an assistant principal, and just it was in the Renton area, if you know anything about the Renton area, multi-language, probably talking over 100 different languages, urban setting. She's seen a lot in her assistant principal job, and then learning last year at Davis as well about Yakima and what we offer here, and now being able to take all of that knowledge and transition into Stanton. And we know that there are some great things on the horizon in the way that we address the needs of our students in that area. So I want to thank all of you for choosing Yakima and choosing to be a part of our system and making a difference for students and our community. And I don't know how we're going to fit you all into one photo. Oh, there we go. You're great at your position. Thank you for choosing outside. All right. I don't know if there are any questions of any of our new administrators, but if you...
Before they get pulled outside.
Yeah, before they're out.
I just want to thank you all for being here today. It's nice to put faces to names. Not that I'm going to remember in the next time I see you, because it just takes a while. I'm looking forward to working with all of you this year, and I want to thank you for joining us. Welcome.
I'd also like to welcome you, and I've met some of you already, and one of you I coached in high school volleyball years ago, and one of you was a graduate student at Heritage, so it's nice to see people I've taught in the system. So.
All right, well, thank you. We'll excuse you, and you're welcome to come back in or head home after the photo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further update, these last 2 weeks, I believe it's been 2 weeks since our last meeting, I was able to have a site visit at Eisenhower High School and Garfield Elementary. We're very impressed with the work that's happening with our leadership team at Eisenhower and the way that they're collaborating around our strategic plan goals, specifically attendance and focusing on grade level credits or graduation rate. As far as Garfield, Steve, who I mentioned is out, Principal Brownlow, just continues to do a wonderful job. He'll be out for a little bit of time, and Tally will then take over now. She started there as kind of maybe like an interim position, but with lots of support this week, and we're excited about what she brings to the table as well. I will tell you that the Garfield site continues to be an area where, when we're talking about the physical aspect of the building, we continue to struggle for space. I know that we've converted a hallway in that facility to 2 offices to better serve students and provide some ventilation in those areas as well. But we're looking forward to the day where we're able to move forward on potential passage of a bond that would update that facility. But as far as the learning and excitement, enthusiasm, you're not going to find a better place probably than Garfield. And going into their cafeteria, it was wonderful to see the structures that they had in place, the adults that were there serving lunch, connecting with kids, intervening on issues which I was able to witness, and just very excited about what we're offering in those two communities, both the Eisenhower community and also then Garfield. As far as other items to share with you, we do have a faith-based partnership meeting on September 20th. That is this Wednesday, so I know it's on our 2-week calendar, but I did want to call that out here in open session. So this is a meeting with our principals and each of the clergy and congregations representation that are connected to our schools. As you know, we have such a robust partnership with our faith-based community. It's something that we do not take lightly, and we're excited to celebrate. This is the first one of the year, September 20th, YB Tech, 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Another item that I would flag for you is, and I believe this will be in the 2-week calendar, we'll have to look at the actual times, but there is a dedication of the mini pitch at Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary, and I believe that's this Friday at 2 o'clock, I'm being told. So 2 o'clock, we'll have some media should be present. We'll have representation from the Ray Foundation, which is the charitable branch of the Seattle Sounders, who will be in town for that event, and others. So we're excited about that 2 o'clock Friday celebration, dedication of the 2 mini pitch fields behind Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary. Another reminder is that the WASDA Networking Hour has now started up again. So that is an online opportunity to connect with Tim Garchow and his executive director of WASDA and his phenomenal team. Obviously, you've met Tricia Lubach, who has been here during our retreat days. So they will join us on Thursday afternoons at noon. And the next one is September 28th. It looks like is the kickoff date of that. So September 28th at noon, and then it'll be every other Thursday. And last item that I have for you this evening is just an update that our students have continued to work, our student fellows have continued to work to try to finalize the student voice policy. So there will be some dates that are set up in the near future to have you, each individual director, have a meeting with 1 or 2 students. I will be present as well to go over the document that they have prepared for the last year and offer insight, potential revisions, or potentially even a direction to refine a bit more, but it will be certainly up to the board. So if there's any additional preparation that may be needed beforehand, I'd be more than willing and excited to share with you some of the work that I've seen from my perspective in working with that team. The students are also scheduled to present, just to let everyone know here, they are scheduled to go to the WASDA conference. They've been accepted as one of the presenting teams to share with board members across our state the work that they've done on trying to prepare a student voice policy. So I'll be presenting with them, as well as potentially Marcello Scambolari. We'll have to check now that he's over at the ESD. So that concludes my superintendent update for today. Unless you have any questions about something that I may have missed or something about that I've shared and would like more detailed kind of information.
Any questions for Dr. Green? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a comment. It's exciting that the students are going to be presenting at WASDA. I'm not aware that any other district in this state has a student voice policy. This may be the first one in the state, and they can be quite proud of that product.
Thank you. Next up is calendar updates, and I think you pretty much highlighted those already in your comments. Just a reminder to our board members to check those dates and see if there's anything there that sparks your interest or you need to be at. I'm not going to go through the whole list. Or is there anything that you can think of that needs to be added?
Just a reminder that anything you would like to attend, please do just reach out and let Barb know so that we don't have a quorum, or that we make sure that it's okay. Some events we can have a quorum at that's not really a quorum if it's a basketball game, football game, and whatnot. But just trying to coordinate everything, it'd be great if you could just reach out. But and if you'd like more specifics about the times, I noticed that we didn't have the time for the celebration at MLK listed. That's 2 o'clock, as I mentioned. we'll work on making sure we have those times up there for you. But it is on that calendar that we do share. So if you go on that calendar, you'll be able to find the time.
Thank you. Okay, we have arrived at our first opportunity for comments from the public on agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience that signed up to comment?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Now we will welcome our first board report. I think we have the annual enrollment report. Ms. Locke will present for us, I believe.
Yes, I will. So this is the annual student enrollment report we do once a year. And I will be presenting in lieu of Jake today. So we have a 5-year actual FTE K-12 and ALE enrollment trend, and you can see over the last 5 years from 2018-19 through the pandemic and through the end of last year, what our enrollment looks like. And I would just note that to the side, it goes up in increments of 200. So although some of those drops look big, they might not be as big as they appear in the graph. So as you can see, and we've talked before, it is trending slightly downward over the last 5 years. When we look at a 5-year average FTE for our elementary, again, you can see kind of the same slight decrease. Just give you a second to look at that. And most notably, and we talked a little bit about birth rate perhaps being an indicator, an impact. If you look at 2018-19 enrollment of kindergartners at 1215, and we look at last year at 1027. Let's see, where were you? If you look at kinder, you look at 1215 5 years ago, and then we're down a couple hundred students. If we look at the 5-year average again, you can kind of begin to see that trending down a little bit. When we look at that 5-year comparison with our elementary schools, that's a decrease of 11.4% over 5 years, an average of 144% decrease. And we're seeing the largest decrease at the K-5 level. So
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
From afar. Has anybody analyzed that 11.4% decrease and how that aligns with the birth rate in the district?
I know Jake was looking into that. I don't know if he's actually got that information yet, but yes, he was researching that.
I think that would be interesting information, not only for the board, but for the community as well.
Agreed. Yeah. We'll get that to you, Martha. When we look at a 5-year average enrollment for middle school, again, we see a slight decrease, but we had at the elementary school 11.4% decrease over those last 5 years. At the middle level, it's actually an increase of 7.7%, or an increase of about 85 FTE over that 5-year span. When we take a look at the high school level, we're looking at a decrease of about 2.6 over that same 5-year span, or an average of 33 FTE decrease. When we look at our alternative learning, at Stanton, we're seeing a decrease of about 19.2% trend over that 5-year period, an average decrease of 40 FTE. And Yakima Online increase of 374.3%, or an average increase of 277 FTE over that 5-year period. And so, you know, we had wagered to guess that the pandemic had something to do with that, and looking at that going forward. So overall, from 2018 to 2023, our district enrollment has decreased by an average of 4.32%, or 682 FTE decrease. Any questions I can answer for the board?
I'm just wondering, for me, it's like there's two reasons why students not coming in and students leaving the district. So I'm just wondering about the second is, what type of students leaving? I mean, I don't know if we've had that data, but what grades, or any special populations? Are they migrant students not coming back, or just wondering about who's leaving our district?
Yeah, that's a good question. We can disaggregate that and bring it back to you.
Okay.
I have one more question. I think we know that there were students that didn't come back after the pandemic
Mhm.
that were here before then.
Mhm.
Is there follow-up with them, or have they just disappeared down a rabbit hole somewhere?
There's a lot of follow-up with students, both at the building level, with the home visitors that we have, to include high at risk kids. But again, any student that has not returned, there's been follow-up.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
This is good information to have. Thank you, Stacy.
Our next report is our summer program highlights. Mr. Hector Mendez will be providing that report for us.
Thank you, President Walker. Thank you, Superintendent Green. Thank you, members of our cabinet, members of our board. I'm here to present the summer school programs update. It's my understanding that you have access to the slides. So I'm really going to focus on 5 slides today, just to keep, and you'll see which ones I focus on. But I do want to share with you what we did over the summer. So in that first slide, we had my name is Hector Mendez, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Leadership and Accountability. Let me start there for those who are viewing online. So for the YSD summer program, for the 2023 program, we had various summer programs. The first one there is the ESD 105 elementary summer program, which was housed at 4 elementary schools. We also had the YSD elementary migrant summer school, which occurred right after the summer school. So all students were invited for 18 days, 8:30 to 12:30. Then when they left at noon, students who were migrant had an extended day for the rest of the day. So that's where we pick up the migrant summer program. We also had the 21st century middle school program at 2 schools. And we had the high school summer program. It says 2 sessions at both comprehensive high schools, STEM and YOL. And we offered a special education extended year program for those who had an IEP and needed some compensatory education. And that happened at all levels, elementary, middle, and high. And so what did we provide? Part of it's not only just academic, right? We wanted to focus on the academics and close that gap in learning preparation for this upcoming school year. We also wanted some opportunities to connect with our students. And so caring adults, those in education, some of our students need to spend some time with those caring adults. All students were provided with 2 meals, breakfast and lunch, and also transportation was provided to our students, both school and city transit. So there's some of the slides that you can peruse through later on. I want to focus on the elementary summer program. So we have on here on the left some data from 2022 and 2023. In 2022, we were able to provide some days of summer education, 16 days, 2 years ago. I'm going to compare 2 years ago to this past school year. So when I'm looking at that data, the great thing is this is our second year working with ESD. That first year in the yellow, if you look at that data, the left-hand side, the y-axis, it goes up to 750 students. Down at the bottom of the graph is day 1, day 2, and so forth. Everything in yellow was from 2 years ago. Everything in white is from last year. So when we look at that first column there in the yellow and the white, the first point of data, 2 years ago, we had about 250 students attend summer school on day one, whereas this past school year, we're over 600. And so there's some growth there. And you'll see that as you look at the trend data all the way across, we actually, the great thing, we're able to add an additional couple days of summer school this past school year compared to 2 years ago. So this past year, we did invite 2,700 students. We invited them during parent-teacher conferences. We used other methods such as our parent square. And out of those that were invited, based on our DIBEL score, we intentionally invited our students. Based on that, over 1,000 registered. And out of that, 750 students were served during their summer program with an average daily attendance of 670 students. And I really want to make sure that we hear this, that we targeted everything towards our goal number 2, which is to empower, connect, support, and engage our students, which is goal number 2 in our plan, our district plan. I do want to mention, when it comes to data, we had over 100 students who had 100% perfect attendance during the summer, which is something to celebrate. The next slide there that you have is looking at our academic data. So when you look at the grades 1 through 4, the first, well, let me talk about the graph first. On the left-hand side, you'll see the numbers 0 through 8. Those are percentages of 0, 20, 40%, and so forth, up to 80%. Then on the x-axis, you have the grades 1 through 4. If you look solely at grade 1, and you look at the bar graph, the blue and the red, those indicate the blue is a pre-math assessment compared to the red, the post-math assessment, which is taken at the last day of the last week of summer school. The yellow and the green represent literacy or reading, yellow and green, and you can see the growth there. And so if you look at the grades 1, 2, 3, and 4, you will see a steady increase in both math and literacy. The question might be, well, look at grades 3 and 4. And part of that was the assessment, the rubric that was used to score the kids. It was pretty consistent that it had to do a lot of writing and explaining the reasoning, which is not very easy. Again, we intentionally invited our students. And so the data was pretty low. I'm going to keep this at a positive. There was growth. And I want us to keep that in our mind. So that's what we had for the summer program for ESD concerning data. Also, we invited our migrant summer school program. In the second half of the day with our migrant students, we focused on STEAM and math. And so we focused on the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And part of that was because I've always looked at our data. And so our migrant students, we wanted to make it more hands-on approach, more based, if you will, academically based. And so what we did is we provided the engineering is everywhere for all of our students, which is I was able to get some support with a little bit with ESD, but we provided some PD for our teachers. And in that program, we really talked about science. And so, especially in the early years, we talked about plants. And so we did a couple various field trips on Fridays with our migrant students. And these are pictures of some of where we went to the Cowiche Blueberry Farm. And in that, they did a great job. They, meaning the farm, I connected with them previous to our kids showing up and really trying to attach what we're learning in the classroom. So learning about the nutrients, the importance of water, conservation and irrigation, the importance of the pollination or bees, the products and producers, and also the protection, the netting. It was pretty interesting when we were in there. The kids noticed that there are still birds in the field, even with the netting down, right? And birds are pretty slick. They're smart. They figured their way in. And that was really great conversation. And so you'll see the picture. We did invite all of our staff and some parents showed up. And ultimately, there's that little girl there. This is the best day ever. Every student got a quart-size Ziploc bag to fill up with blueberries. So they got to take some home. And this was day 1, opening day of blueberry. So it was pretty spectacular to watch. I mean, the harvest was plentiful that day. Lastly, I'd like to talk about middle school and high school, our summer programs that were there. When you look at this slide at the very top, it lists the 6 schools, the 4 high schools and the 2 middle schools. And on the left-hand side, it gives you the number of students that were invited, those that were registered and attended, credits that were completed, average credit per student, and then the number of graduates. So you'll see 9 graduates because of the program that we provided. And so you could see the numbers there. What I do want to highlight, though, was Washington Middle School at the very last column there, where it has an asterisk with the number 54. And that's pretty special because these are the students that did complete Washington State history, which is a requirement in high school. And so they got to complete that early on. And so that's pretty neat that Washington was able to pull that off. And so this is the data that was presented. This is in a crux, in a nutshell of what we did during the summer program for elementary through high school. What questions do you have?
Hector, when you said that the summer programs for the high schools allowed for 9 students to graduate, for the viewing public, that means that they acquired enough credits to graduate. They might not have had them in June, but they have them now.
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. This is impressive.
Thank you.
It's good to see this kind of data for our summer schools. You know, what not only the increased number of students that are participating and the increased number that are participating consistently, but also the information about what their growth was over the course of those, how many days?
18 days.
18 days. To see that level of growth in those 18 days is pretty impressive. And it probably speaks well for what we can expect from those students, or what teachers can expect from those students coming into the fall.
I agree. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Thank you. I was also impressed by the accomplishments in summer school. I had a question on the ESD funded, or we contracted with the ESD. They didn't fund it, but we contracted with them to do, that was just the elementary, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then the middle and high school and migrant were all funded by, they're all funded by us, but I mean, that was our own staff and our own programming, correct?
So elementary was funded by ESD. Not funded. We collaborate with ESD.
Yeah,
105, right? And then migrant, that's a separate program that wasn't through funded. Neither
Right.
was middle school and high school, or high school.
I was just going to clarify that the middle school program at Washington Middle School is part of that 21st Century grant that we've talked about before. So that is funded through a grant and through collaboration with ESD 105. We utilized, just as a reminder, ESSER learning recovery funds to pay for the elementary program this last year. And then we have typically used Title, other special programs funds, to pay for our high school summer school. We were able to use some ESSER funds over the last few years, but we'll be shifting back to special programs dollars this next year.
Which kind of leads to my next question. Are we going to be able to maintain that level of summer programming in the future, or are we going to have to make some cuts?
Well, you'll notice that Mr. Cooper is not here today. So it will be, it will completely be dependent upon budgets, but I would anticipate that we will likely not be able to do as much as we've offered the last few years, because as you will recall, our district was, I think, the highest in terms of ESSER funding that was provided to a public school district in the state of Washington. And that did allow us to do a lot of extra things to support our students in recovering.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I do have a question regarding the high school credits completed. So like, for instance, Davis High School, 250 students attended. There was 127.5 credits completed. And the average, I'm not sure if that's the average number taken or completed by student. So I'm just kind of wondering how that works out. I mean, like, and also the other part of my question is, each class, how many credits were they worth?
Well, let me answer the first question. The first question, yeah, we take the total number of credits completed by the number that attended, which is where we got the 2 credits. The second part to that is how much was each class? That's what you're asking, right? The credits per class? That I can find out for you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's different per class, but I can get back
Is
to
it
you
like
on
a
that.
0.25 or a
They're
0.5?
typically a half credit,
Did you
a
say half?
0.5 credit, which is a semester-based credit, and we will get you an updated slide on
Okay.
those averages because I see the error that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I mean, if I take 2 and times it by 250 students, that would be 500 credits. So I'm just wondering how that all works out. So, thank you.
Could we also get a breakdown of classes that were taken? And, what the demand was from students for which classes? I would expect that maybe math had high numbers and maybe something else didn't have high numbers, but
Yeah, we can gather the enrollment and completion data for you and get that back to you at a later time. We typically offer core content classes. So the majority of the courses even offered in our summer high school program are going to be in language arts, mathematics, social studies, and science. And they are based on coursework that students need to retrieve. So it is typically finishing up a class that they'd already started earlier in either semester 1 or semester 2, and making sure that they're able to finish up and earn that credit so they can move on the next fall.
thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Thank you that was an interesting report and a positive report. I'm glad to see that summer school is providing good service to kids. So, next up, we have our consent agenda. And on the consent agenda are the August 2023 minutes, the approval of warrants for August 2023, approval of personnel actions, and there was one correction in there that we've been informed of, approval of out of endorsement assignments for the next school year. Is there anything that we need removed from the consent agenda? Okay, barring no requests, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Bart, would you call the roll, please?
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Rice,
aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Next up, we have the second opportunity for comments from the public for items that were not on the agenda. Are there any requests to comment? Seeing none? Oh, there is one.
President Walker. This was an employee who had an employment issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw that it was an employee with an issue that needed to be raised and I hadn't heard anything, I asked if she would be willing to speak with me, which she was, made me aware of the issue, which I had not heard about until this evening. So I've already sent a couple of emails to staff trying to find the background for it, and we'll follow up with a meeting with her as soon as I have the hard information and address it. So the superintendent had pointed it out to me that there was an employee, so that's why I was late stepping in. I'd like to apologize for being late, but I would also like to say that hopefully we will have this addressed before she has any other issue that would need to be addressed by the board or anybody else. And I appreciate Elaine Ariola taking the time to speak with me and to share with me what those concerns were.
Thank you.
And ultimately, it looks like she's left.
Oh, okay.
So she may not be here to
Okay, this may be a separate one.
to follow that up.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is. So this is Nevaeh Mitchell, I believe. Is that correct? Did I say your name correctly?
Yes. I think I was a little bit confused. This is my first school board meeting, so I'm mostly coming to just get more information and just see how these go along. But I am a youth outreach worker at Rod's House, and yeah, that's kind of what I'm here for. One thing that I did, I don't know if it's might be a little bit too early to talk about, but I am 2 years out of high school, and one thing I wanted to ask is, why don't we have like home ec so teach us about like life skills outside of other than like cooking science, food science? Just curious, is it like not in the budget, or is it more focused on like educational things like math, reading, writing, spelling, stuff like that? At least at the high school level.
Okay. Any other questions or comments you had?
No, just that one. It just came to my head since I'm here, and I was hearing you guys talk about the classes that are offered.
Okay.
But I think that was more for the summer program.
Okay, thank
But
you.
President
So,
Walker will be happy to talk with her
yeah,
about the concern.
it's a great question.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have report on policy number 1000.2.7, emergency superintendent succession. Mr. Marietta.
Thank you. The emergency superintendent succession is identical to last year's. You've had an opportunity to read it during the course of the last couple of weeks. Basically, this policy states what we shall do in the event the superintendent is no longer with us, and how we operate until a new superintendent is chosen. If there are any questions or concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Are there any questions or concerns from the board on this policy? Okay, and I believe we've altered our structure on how we deal with policies so that we don't necessarily need to cycle them through 3 times. That if we see no changes or concerns, that we can approve it at the first reading. Is that correct?
I'm just going off my recollection, as I don't know if the board actually made a decision on changing. There was much discussion about the possibility, and certainly that did occur during the retreat, but my recollection, there was no finalization of what would happen as far as SurveyMonkey and the 3 sessions, correct?
Okay. So if we hadn't formally changed that, then we will continue with the existing procedure. We'll survey, and then we'll readdress it the next meeting. Okay, thank you. And next up, we have policy 1000.2.9, communications and support to the board. Mr. No.
Thank you. Thank you, President Walker, members of the board. This is the executive limitations monitoring report that covers the superintendent's communication and support for the board. Overarching, it's the superintendent shall not fail to appropriately inform and support the board in its work. And we've determined the superintendent to be in compliance. There's 9 sub areas within the executive limitation that speaks to communication and support for the board, and we find the superintendent be in compliance with each of those. If you have any questions, I'll entertain those. Thank you.
Any questions from the board or comments? Noting that you've indicated they're all in compliance, we'll just complete the survey. and complete that process the next meeting. Thank you. Okay, there is a need for a 15-minute executive session. So we will
Do we know,
pause the meeting.
do we know what for?
For potential litigation, I believe, and one personnel.
Okay, I move that we adjourn to executive session for 15 minutes for the purpose of current or potential litigation with legal counsel.
Second.
Moved and seconded to move to executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Let's just move immediately. We're back in session. Briefly, just one quick announcement. Our next board meeting is Monday, October 2nd at 4 p.m., and it will be located at Barge Lincoln Elementary School. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, thank you for being here, everyone. Have a good evening.